Hi everyone! Today's technique video is how to make color changes for 1 and 2 row stripe patterns. If you have tried this in the past, you know how terrible that jog can look. This technique is the same as my jogless knit 2 together color change, but with an extra step. You can use this technique for as many rows as you want. If you are making 3 or more rows, then I suggest using the regular jogless change, and I'll link to that video in the upper corner in the description below. I'm using my 40 needle machine with the automatic adapter, and I've knit some rows in a neutral color. And now I want to make my first color change. I'll make my first change at the first black needle. Place the new yarn in the same location, hold the tails up high so the hook catches the yarn, and then knit almost all the way around. We want to stop just before that black needle pops up. Insert your loom hook into the stitch and pull back on the stitch. Then advance the machine a little and wait for the needle to come up. Then you can let go of the stitch. This keeps the previous row stitch on the needle, and it will get knitted with the first row of the new color. This is the knit 2 together step. Knit another row. Instead of changing colors at the black needle, or I'll call it the number 1 needle, we're going to go 1 needle past that. So cut the working yarn and place between the number 1 and the number 2 needle. Then place the new color in the same location. Hold the tails high and knit almost all the way around. I forgot to mention that you should make a half a knot in the tails. The half knot will keep the knitting together while we finish knitting the tube. Then the knots will be finished after the tube is off the machine. Continue to knit around until the number 1 needle is about to pop up. I went a little far and the stitch was almost over the needle. That's okay, I'll just pull it back over to keep it on the needle. Knit another row, and again we will change colors 1 needle past the previous color change. So here's my color change from before. I'm just going to go 1 needle past. So I'll cut my yarn, place it between those 2 needles, place the new yarn in that same location, hold the tails up and knit around. So again, I want to pull that stitch back, and then I can continue to knit for another row. Oh, don't forget to tie your tails. Now we can continue to knit, and we'll stop 1 needle past our previous location. Cut the yarn, place it in between these 2 needles, and continue on. When you use this shifting of the color change, you may think that the row count is going to be off, but we are completing full rows of each color. So by shifting the color change, this jog becomes invisible. So I'll make a few more color changes here, and I am speeding this up a little bit so you can still see what I'm doing. So for 2 row color changes, or 2 row stripes, there are 2 things you need to remember. One, at the end of the first row, use the knit 2 together. Okay. This is going to bring the jog from the first row up into the second row, kind of mask it a little bit. And then the second thing is to shift the color change 1 needle over every time you make a color change. And you can see how my color changes are starting to stagger to the left. I'm going to switch to the neutral color again for about 6 or 7 rows. And to do this, it's the exact same process, except at the end of row 2, I will just continue knitting. We won't be changing colors. Let's look at how to do a one row stripe color change. I'll start at the black needle, and just like we did the 2-row stripe color change, I'll cut the yarn and place in the same location. Make a half a knot in our tails, knit almost all the way around, and we'll do the knit 2 together. Pull back on the stitch, advance a little bit. Since we're at the end of our one row, we're going to go 1 needle past our previous change location. So we changed right before the black needle. Now we'll change 1 stitch or 1 needle past the black needle. So knit almost all the way around and then do the knit 2 together technique. So keep that stitch on the needle, and then we will immediately, following needle, do our color change. And don't forget to make a half a knot in your tails each time. So I'll make a few more one row color changes, and I'm just going to speed it up a little bit. Hopefully you're able to still see what I'm doing. Again, you're doing the knit 2 together at the end of the first row, and then immediately in the next needle you're making your color change. You can use this technique for as many rows as you want. The key is to shift the color change by 1 needle each time. And again, if you're making 3 or more rows, then I suggest using the regular jogless change. In the regular jogless change, you're making your color changes at the same location, which is normally your number 1 needle. At this point, you're probably wondering if you can carry the yarn rather than cut the yarn for each row. I have not found a good way to control the float, and the float is the unused portion of the yarn that is carried on the back side of the work. So I believe this is because we are using larger needles and less stitches compared to hand knitting, and that float has to be the perfect tension. Otherwise you see stitches that are too big or too small depending on how loosely or tightly you have carried that float. Unfortunately, I have not figured out a good way to carry the yarn. Alright, I've changed back to some neutral, and I'm just going to knit a bunch of rows so that I can take this off the machine and show you what it looks like. So give it a good stretch. Ignore that tuck stitch that I have there. Good thing this is just a sample. So this is what it looks like when it comes off the machine, and you can definitely see where our color changes are. And remember, we haven't secured these tails yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So turn the tube inside out and gently tighten the knot and check the outside to see how it looks. You only want to remove the slack in the stitches. You're not trying to pull the stitches together. So I'll do kind of one at a time and check the front until I kind of get the idea of how tightly I need to secure these knots. Once you are satisfied with the look and finish of all the knots, turn it right side out and check to see how it looks. It's easy to go back and readjust the knots if it doesn't look good. I did go back and fix a couple of spots. So with the 2 row stripes completed, I'll go ahead and turn it inside out once again and tighten all of the knots for the 1 row stripes. And I'll just do the same process, kind of secure it, kind of look at the outside and see how it looks, and just keep adjusting until I'm happy with it. Here is the final result. As I rotate this around, it is difficult to see where the color changes are made, and each row is a complete row of stitches. Ignore that stitch marker with the tuck stitch. And these are the two areas where the color change is actually happening. Here's a couple close-up photos. The jog is located in the middle of the stripes. I hope you enjoyed today's technique. Subscribe for more technique videos. Thanks for watching.